If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is...
Pato.
Pato, how was your weekend after Halloween weekend?
It was all right. I just worked a bunch. I worked my second job, which it's a sure sign you don't have your shit together when you're 40 years old and you have two jobs. But
Stop.
that's me. So no, trying to get that CryptidCon money going.
Yeah.
Which was successful. So I could now officially say with 100% certainty that Dr. X will be at CryptidCon.
Oh my gosh. It took you long enough to admit it to yourself.
I know. I was like, well, it's a pain in the ass. But you know what? It's like, fuck it. Like, I canceled everything I had to cancel. I put in for the time off. And, we'll be there Friday and Saturday. So, although I'm getting in town, like, later Friday. I don't know what's going on. I know. Are you going on, like, that Bigfoot expedition thing, or?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So
we'll be there the night before. We'll be there Friday night, and then we'll be there through Sunday. But I think our Hype House Airbnb is until Monday, so I don't know if we'll stay or not yet through Monday. We'll see. But either way, if you're actually at the CryptidCon event, Dr. X and I will both be there, so that'll be great. But we're not going to have a table set up, but I mean, at minimum, you'll recognize me. I have the red hair and mediocre boobs, so.
Right. I'll be wearing the On Wednesday We Talk Weird official T-shirt, which will be for sale if anyone wants to buy it off my back. And I'm gonna bring a stack of stickers that I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna vandalize everything that I can with.
Please, yeah.
And who all's coming?
That's a really good question. I think who's anybody. I mean, Manic Pixie Dream Ghouls will be there. Conjure Dust Design will be there. That's Danner and his stuff. The Moth Boys will be there. Aaron Dees and his wife Sarah from Hey Strangeness will be there.
Awesome. Okay.
I mean, up on way more people than that. That's just where I'm at right now.
And where are we at with are we planning like something to do Saturday night, or what's going on?
That's a really good question, and that's something that I think that a lot of us kind of need to talk about. We'll see. Stay tuned.
Add me to the group text, please.
Okay.
See if you can get me in on that now that I'm officially a part of the Cool Kids Club. Yeah.
So anyway, CryptidCon, that's coming up. That's less than 2 weeks away now. So super, super exciting. So, we'll just we'll see what happens. It'll be great. It'll be a wonderful time. I'm super excited about it. I fucking just can't wait. I need this in my life. But
yeah, me too. Well, and that's kind of like what made me definitively pull the trigger on it. I was like, no, I need to go to Kentucky for a weekend and get the fuck away from Chicago.
All of this, sure.
All of this,
absolutely.
Gesture about wildly, yeah.
So the weekend before Thanksgiving, if you guys are anywhere near Lexington, Kentucky, there is a cryptozoology convention. It's the biggest of the year. It's called CryptidCon, and if you don't already know about it, you should probably know about it. But further, you should probably go, and then you can see us, and Pat will vandalize you with a sticker. So.
Dr. X.
I'm sorry, Dr. X. My bad. Back to that again. Whatever. That guy.
I will be in incognito. I'll be in disguise.
You could have your Pat ego or alter ego, and then your Dr. X alter ego, and right. One of them wears the shirt one way because it's got a front and a back, and then the other wears the shirt backwards.
I'm just gonna have a stethoscope around my neck.
Everybody want to know who that is.
Fucking. And a lab coat and a prescription pad for Adderall.
Well, see, if you guys want to get in on some of that, come to CryptidCon. That's right. That's happening. But I always find the weekend after Halloween is always very sad. I mean, it's very strange. It's like it's too early to Christmas, but it's now too late to Halloween. So It's a hard one, it's a rough time, but I've decided fuck that this year. It's Christmas. Merry Christmas. November 1st. Christmas.
Well, it was also daylight savings time, so that was really awesome.
Oh,
We got
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we got that
right.
extra hour. I was busy. Like I didn't, my dogs were gone for 3 weeks. We had them in like training school, and they finally came home. So that was awesome. Like, 'cause I actually missed one of my dogs. The other one's a fucking cunt. I could care less about her. But the one dog came back, so that was cool. And played D&D for 5 hours on Sunday with
That's cool.
my online group of friends. So yeah, it wasn't that much of a bummer. Uh,
Yeah,
Nothing too sexy happened, but
well, here's something that's crazy and that I forget about is that there are people in the United States even and across the world that don't have daylight savings time.
yeah, it's like county by county they vote for it.
It's ridiculous, right? And so some people don't know what this is. So I'll tell you real quick if you don't know. During the fall and also during the spring, the time changes by 1 hour. In the fall, it goes back by 1 hour, and in the spring, it goes forward by 1 hour. So that happens, and it fucks us all up, and it's kind of stupid, and we should probably get rid of it. I think we should get rid of it. I think it's not effective. But you know what's crazy is that I didn't even notice that, like, I forgot, and I didn't notice that the time changed. So, like, Sunday, I'm like just kind of having a weird off day. I'm like, what is going on? Why is it so weird? And it was because the time had changed. So, and it does that to you, fucks with you for probably about a good week, and then you kind of get used to it. So, there's that. But yeah, I didn't do anything. You know what I did this weekend? I played Animal Crossing all weekend long.
What is the new update? What
I
is the
mean,
new
there's a bunch of stuff, but like the big thing is that like we got the cafe, which is kind of a if you're an avid Animal Crosser, play Animal Crossing play. God damn it, Animal Crossing player. If you play a lot of Animal Crossing, you'll recognize that the cafe is in the games, and you get Brewster who runs the cafe, and that's the big thing. And there's also this new feature where you go to there's another way to go to different other islands, these other mystery islands. Just play it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Maybe people haven't played the new updates yet. So,
Okay, okay.
but I've been playing it all weekend, and so that's what I did, which was nice because it is super rare for me to just do nothing. I don't know what that's like, and I had moments of panic where I'm like, "What am I doing? I've got to do something. Like I shouldn't be sitting here." Which I did. I mean, I did other stuff. I've really been trying to get this documentary together. Speaking of which, I'm going to formally announce on the show if you would like to be part of the documentary, everybody that's listening, you can. Now is your chance. I need you to submit a video to me. It doesn't have to be long, explaining what you think the Mothman is, and you can make it serious. You can make it silly. It doesn't matter, but you can send it to me either through one of my social media links. You can email it to me at fromtheashers@gmail.com. I'll link that as well. But send me your submission, and if you are a creator of some sort and you want something plugged, make sure that you include that's how you would like to be credited, or how you would like to be credited, because I would like to give proper credits for your time. So that's a cool thing that I'm doing. But yeah, so I've been doing that all weekend, getting people's videos and editing, and just trying to figure it out. We've got so much footage of just us walking around the woods. So, you got to weed through it eventually. So, there we are. And even though we do still have things that we have to film for the documentary, I know a lot of people have been waiting very patiently for this thing to come out. And, thank you for that. COVID really, it did take a toll on some of these things, and but we've got one more area that we need to film. I would like to film something else, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in that basket. If I don't get it done, I'll just include it in the next documentary. So, but that's a thing. So there's that. Submit your video by December 15th. That's the deadline. Like I said, just short clip. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, saying what you think the Mothman is. So there's that. But that's what I did this weekend.
Awesome.
So it was super exciting. But other things happened this weekend. We'll talk about that in a minute. I want to talk about Jetpack Man. Do you remember last year when we pilots kept seeing this jetpack dude.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
So, a video as well as some pictures have surfaced allegedly from um the police and in LA, and it is of a balloon, a big Jack Skellington life-size balloon, and that is not what they believe these pilots were seeing. They were not actually seeing somebody in a jetpack, they were seeing a Jack Skellington balloon. Have you seen this anywhere on social media?
Yeah. I read that story.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Granger. Granger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
What do you think about it?
Um, I don't know. You'd have to talk to the pilot.
Well,
I mean,
that's right.
like
That's the thought
I would
process.
show that to the pilot and be like, "What do you think?"
Right, because like, I mean, are they really going to mistake a balloon for somebody in a jetpack?
You know, um,
I'm sure
I
they
don't.
see balloons a lot.
I don't think it's completely outside the realm of yeah, but if this is um, a life-size humanoid balloon, and it's kind of floating, uh, in like upright, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
to, that could be a little disorientating, but would think that it's more likely to be like a drone on the back of a fucking balloon or something. You know what I mean? That makes more sense to me than just a free floating balloon. Because think about how like willy nilly that thing would be in the air currents.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? It
Just
would pop around too much.
I mean, have you seen a balloon? I mean, I'm sure you've seen a balloon in the sky,
Right?
and I
Yeah.
mean, it is weird, and that's what I'm saying, like, because it's not like it was just one pilot either. It wasn't just one guy. It's just multiple sightings over the course of, so many months that this, so you're telling me that the same fucking, somebody just happened to have the same Jack Skellington balloon every single time, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying that. But of course, maybe that's just the romantic in me that wants to believe that there's something more to the story. So I don't know. Sometimes maybe it's just a balloon.
Right, but then you have to look at it like this. Why would the LAPD lie about this? Or do you think they're just mistaken?
I think they could be mistaken. I think that it's more likely that a jetpack man was flying in the air the same day that a Jack Skellington balloon was.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's probably more like it. I agree, though. I would like to hear the pilot's take on it. I haven't seen what any of the pilots have said about this. So if you were the pilot that saw this, or one of the pilots that saw this, if you're listening to the show for whatever reason, what did you think? Do you think that you saw a
Right.
balloon? Call us at 773-59-WEIRD and let us know. I swear to God, one of these days I will. I will be playing. We will be playing calls, so definitely utilize that number. But anyway, I might even open it up during CryptidCon weekend, and you guys may be able to call us live and talk to us. We'll see. We'll
I
see.
was gonna say we need to figure out. Well, I mean, that's
We'll
something we
see.
can do off air, but we should figure out something special to not only make when we're down there, but
Well, we will.
if
We will.
yeah,
We'll figure it out. But anyway, so something else happened this weekend. That everybody knows about that we kind of have to talk about. I don't normally talk about things like this on the show just because this show, as much as there's some, we talk about some really horrific things sometimes. I don't talk about like current events and stuff like that a lot just because if you want to read about current events, you can go listen to a news podcast. But a lot of people came to me individually and had brought this up, and it's really the only reason why I'm bringing it up. But we need to talk about this Astro World thing. Um,
yeah,
because it's been crazy. It's been really wild. And, as we're recording this right now, it's Monday night. I told you guys before, sorry to ruin the magic. It's not actually Wednesday for us. But it's still developing because it's just happened. What, Saturday? Is that, I think, and
Friday.
was it Friday night?
Yeah, the 5th.
Okay, okay, and so Astroworld's like what, a big festival? I mean,
Dude, I'm 40. I don't know what any of these fucking
right?
things were
I
until
mean, it's a festival that people go to.
Travis Scott. I was like, the guy from Parks and Rec. Like,
I
I
yeah,
didn't know who these people were.
same.
Yeah, I was completely
Right.
out of touch for all this.
Right, out of that scene. I don't know nothing about it. But anyway, there's this big festival that happens every year. It didn't happen last year because COVID, but it's new. It's kind of new to the scene, and I think that it's specifically ran by Travis Scott. Like, it's his festival, right? And so, they had this festival. People were super stoked about it. But tragedy ensued, and people have died at this thing, and we're not really sure. It's kind of weird as to what happened, I think. Now, what a lot of people say, what happens is that they refer to it as a stampede of type of sorts, which,
They were in Texas.
stop, that's poor taste. But you're right. But that's what they call these kinds of things. They're saying that people were basically kind of not really rushing the stage, but the crowd was just kind of continuously moving closer and closer to the stage. And if you've ever been at a big show before, and you've ever been in the middle of a crowd, or you've ever been in a mosh pit, I mean, you kind of
You know
understand.
exactly what they're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. The crowd kind of moves, and you don't really have to have a choice but to move with it.
Right.
And so this happened, and it's resulted in, so far, I've tried to keep up to date, but so far 8 deaths.
Right.
Possibly more, because there are people in the hospital, over 300 injuries, and
Right.
people in the hospital. Um and so, that's what's going on right now. That's kind of the claim. Now, this isn't it's not like these things don't happen, because they do. And it's not like these things can't happen, but there's a lot of weirdness surrounding it. And I'm going to be the first one to say that, yeah, there's a lot of things that seem strange. Like, now there's a claim that one of the security guards was injected with drugs. I think it was, and I don't know if they said what it is, but I think it was fentanyl, but I don't know. And he had to have be Narcan, and he was fine after that. um there are people saying that, okay, let me just hold on, because I'm going to try to talk about this in a way that's not going to be insensitive, because it can come across as very insensitive. I'm not trying to be. But all we know right now is that 8 people have died. Those are the facts. That's what we know. But if you look at some of the things that are going on and being talked about, during this event, while this was happening, people are pissed off because Travis Scott wouldn't stop the show. People weren't really able to get help for people that needed help, and kind of nothing was really being done. Claims are coming out that the medical staff was severely unprepared for anything like this to have happened. There's video of people where the medical vehicles are trying to get in to get these people out, and these people have surrounded the vehicle, and they're dancing and shit on top of it. I mean, really disgusting stuff, and that's very unfortunate, and very sad that it would come down to that. And I've seen a lot of people compare it to metal shows or hardcore shows or whatever, because they say, basically proper etiquette. If somebody falls down, you pull them back up. And again, if you've ever been at one of these shows, that's kind of how it is. That's how it is. You look out for each other, and that didn't happen here. It seems to not have happened here. And the people that should have been responsible weren't. And so we're kind of looking at a really heavier situation than normal, I suppose. But the thing about it is that I've had people messaging me, telling me about all kinds of horrible things that I think is just ridiculous claims. Like, there's a lot of people that think that this was some type of ritual, and that Travis Scott did this on purpose.
Hmm.
And I
Well,
just go ahead.
yeah. So the festival, I guess you'd say thematically employed a lot of uh, occult
Sure.
iconography. is, is the simplest way to say it using the biggest words possible. Um, that was kind of like the motif of what they were going for with the festival. If you know Riot Fest is kind of billed as this big carnival. This was kind of billed as this trip into the afterlife or the other world or something like that, which I think is kind of, you know, amateurish branding prior to something like this happened, and then after the fact just looks incredibly in poor taste, even
Oh yeah.
though it wasn't. They didn't know, but that's what people were saying. It's like, oh, they must have known, because to walk into the fucking thing, you had to walk through a big paper mache demon head. So, oh, they were telegraphing that this was going to happen, or
Right.
oh, they were woefully unprepared. Security and medical staff was woefully unprepared for 50,000 people rushing the stage at once and trampling, and and hundreds of people getting hurt. And it's like, well, see, here's the thing. Shit happens, and people aren't always as prepared or professional as they should be.
Right.
Anybody that works in any creative medium knows that. As someone that's dealt with promoters and musicians and everyone in every aspect of the game, for a good part of my life, I can attest that you get a lot of people that are just doing this because they can't get fucking real jobs. So, I mean, look what happened with the Fire Festival a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Where those people got trapped off on that island, and it was this ridiculously overpriced, you know, VIP, concert experience that was completely bullshit and never happened. I mean, I'm sure you know the story about
No,
that
I
whole
don't know
thing.
anything about that.
What?
I don't know
Oh
what you're talking
my
about.
God. First of all, there's a Hulu document. You'd recognize one of the memes because the one guy was okay. So I'm not going to go off on this whole fire festival tangent. Look it up. It's FYRE. It's with Ja Rule and this douchebag, like I don't know if he was a fucking cryptocurrency investor, whatever the equivalent of that was 10 years ago. Basically, they conned all of these rich kids to buy these tickets to this thing called Fire Festival, which was going to be on supposedly one of Pablo Escobar's old islands down in the Caribbean or whatever. And they were going to turn it into a venue, and it was going to be like a 3-day, event where you were going to have your own cabana, and Blink 182 and Ja Rule were going to play, and all these bands were going to play, and it was going to be bottle service and super. It was like $10,000 a ticket, like super fucking expensive, right? And all these rich kids and trust fund kids and douchebags bought into it and paid all this money, right? Well, then they fly everyone down there, and they have like FEMA tents and bologna sandwiches for everybody.
Wow.
There's no bands, there's no toilets, there's no running water. The whole thing never came together. They just kept saying, like, we're going to do this festival, and they kept getting money, but they didn't have any kind of plan. They didn't have the infrastructure in place, and they basically just stole all these people's money, stranded them on the island, and then like the fucking Coast Guard and like had to like rescue these people, these kids, because they didn't even have like any way to fly them all out. And none of the bands showed up. Like all the bands knew that it was bullshit. Like they never got paid, so Blink 182 never went down there or anything. It was a huge scam, and it all unfolded in real time via Twitter and like Instagram and stuff. So I remember I was working with. This was when I was working at the hotel when Fire Island the Fire Festival happened. I had two apprentices working with me that were like 24, so they were like age appropriate for this, and they didn't know anybody that went. Like I don't even travel in those circles, right, where people have $10,000 to spend on something like this. But there was buzz about this type of thing, and we were just they had explained it to me. They caught me up real quick, and we just spent that whole entire Friday like laughing our fucking asses off on Twitter, watching like the video of all these horrified rich kids. They're like, we were supposed to have like all this, like this is what they gave me, and it was like a cheese sandwich in a styrofoam container. And I want to say both Hulu and Netflix made documentaries about it, right? And it was the one dude ended up going to prison. Ja Rule, I don't think he's going to do any time about it or whatever, but he might have gotten fined. My point is though, is that that just illustrates how like people try to get into the festival promotion game that don't necessarily know what the fuck they're doing. And I
Yeah.
think that more than anything was the overlying factor here. I do want to talk about the Satanism angle for a second here, but I just want to give my opinion first, which is like this was just piss poor planning. It was people not, it was, you know, uncoordination. What, you know, why were the people dancing on the ambulances? Because they were assholes. You had 50,000 kids there for a rap concert. No one is looking out for each other. They're trampling each other. This wasn't like a metal show like you talked about where people kind of know pit etiquette.
Right.
There's no concept of that. And when you have that many people, you know, there, if you read all the news stories, they still don't know how many people were in the crowd that kind of surged like that. They know that
Right.
50,000 tickets were sold and they wanted to sell 200,000. But the local authority stepped in and said, no, 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 we don't want that many people in that location. You can only do 50,000.
Right.
And that's what they sold. So
Well, and
they don't know.
people were breaking in, and it's encouraged for people to do that kind of stuff at a Travis Scott show. That's not unheard of. That's kind of his thing. And so people that didn't have tickets were showing up. And again, it was encouraged. And yeah, the number was a safety concern before any of this even happened. They've
Right.
discussed it. And Travis Scott's like, "Oh, I love my fans," and so that was kind of his deal, I guess. But again, this man he's been charged for having not something similar happen. People didn't die. I don't think they did anyway. But he encouraged his fans to storm the stage one time and break past the barricades once. And like I said, he was arrested and charged for doing that.
Yeah,
So
because that puts the security in direct danger. You know
right,
what I mean? Yeah.
exactly. And so it's not like he's a stranger to kind of not to bending the rules, in this kind of capacity. But okay, you're right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say like as far as this being some kind of satanic sacrifice, that I think is completely unfounded, and it's just a terrible coincidence that the theme of the event was kind of, you know, peripherally demonic, and then something like this happens, right? So it's kind of like, you know, not a happy accident, but however you want to phrase it.
Yeah. Right.
And that's all there is to it. However, the one thing I do want to talk about is I applaud the internet for jumping on that connection and trying to really like snuff out, you know, a large, for claiming that what we were witnessing was a large scale mass satanic sacrifice. Like, wow, man, you guys have been listening to on Wednesdays we talk weird, haven't you? Like, that makes me have a lot of hope for our fucking little podcast that we have here, right? The little podcast that we may in fact have a chance with iHeartRadio. We may in fact find our audience one day if there's a lot of, I don't even want to say halfwits. I don't even want to say fuckballs. I want to say intelligent, well-informed, skeptical, open-minded individuals that think that this was some kind of like satanic
Something bigger. Sure.
thing in broad daylight. Like, good for you guys.
Hey, you
Good
know what?
for
Right.
you.
They were you guys are questioning it, and you're
Right.
getting there. But this isn't the things that we want you to question. Fucking Jetpack Man. You know.
Right. You know,
um.
like, we can't completely leave common sense at the door. Like,
Right.
you gotta put a little bit of it in your back pocket for
Yeah.
safekeeping.
Well,
Like,
exactly. You got to keep it together a little bit.
but
I mean, some of
there's
the
a
connections were crazy that they were putting together.
But there's a weird correlation between rap music and the Illuminati. Like, that is a
There is.
recurring theme that
Yeah.
pops up a lot. That's almost enough, honestly. I would love to do a whole entire show on that. I really would, because there's a lot there. There's a whole lot there. There's a whole lot with like Quincy Jones and like Puff Daddy and like, you know, the Jacksons. Like, that is a deep dive that we could do, that might kind of, I think, shed a little light on this, because the fact that people made that connection, I don't believe that it's valid in this case, but there's a lot of smoke with with rap, it's specific rap music, not so much rock and roll anymore because rock's fucking dead, punk's dead, all that shit's dead. Rap is kind of like the new rock and roll, I guess you'd say. But there's a lot of smoke with that, and I don't, and sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. Sometimes there's not, but it's very. I would like to expand on that further, possibly in the future.
Okay. I will consider it. I know what you mean though. But you're right. There is a lot of that weird kind of symbolism. I mean, of course, like someone like me, like I kind of laughed because like, there's the one picture. I think it was either one of the flyers that Travis Scott was using to promote this, or it was the new album or something. Anyway, it's a picture of him as fucking Bat Boy. And people are like, "Oh, it's satanic." I'm like, "What's fucking Bat Boy?"
Dude, Weekly World News is like the most right wing shit. Like, if you've ever actually read Weekly World News, it is not low key satanic. That's
No, it's complete fucking satire. I mean, it's
right.
nothing
Yeah.
about it is real, but like, that it was funny to me that that's what people are like using to be like, "Oh, look, he's the devil. He's depicting himself as the devil." No, he's depicting himself as fucking Bat Boy. Like, that's what it
Right.
is. So, I don't know about that. But, like I said, the other connections, people are coming up with numbers and things like that. None of that matters, guys. It just so happened to be, like Pat said, eventually in poor taste. They didn't realize marketing this that this was going to happen. And who's at fault for this? A lot of people are angry at Travis Scott. A lot of people are angry at the venue. A lot of people are angry at the attendees. I'll tell you who's
He
responsible. No, let me tell you who's responsible.
the people in the crowd.
No,
Oh, okay.
everybody.
Everybody,
Everybody is
even me,
responsible,
Ashers.
especially you, Dr. X. Where were you, Dr. X? I'm just kidding. But everybody was responsible. Yeah, actually, yeah. So everybody working there was responsible. Travis Scott's responsible. As a performer, you have to be able to have crowd control. You have to.
I'll respectfully disagree on that, dude. When you're on stage, you don't know what the fuck is happening in the crowd in front of you.
But he did
And
know.
well, so that's one of I read a couple articles on this, and some articles definitely suggest that he was oblivious to what was happening and did not stop the show. Other articles say that no, there's video footage that shows him trying to stop the show and trying to
There
get
is.
attention to these areas.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I think in if he was at the Metro, if he was at a small club show, he could have just shut the whole fucking thing down and said stop until they got control of the situation. But he's standing in front of a crowd of 50,000 plus people. I think it was. If you're going to blame anyone, I blame the organizers. Whoever was in charge of logistics, and it certainly was not fucking him.
He could have stopped it. Why couldn't he? He's the guy on the stage with the microphone. He did stop 4 or 5 times. Now I've been in this group. I've joined the Astro World as an Astro World Facebook group, and these people that go to the festival every year. I've been in that, and I've been seeing the people that were there and like what they're sharing and things like that. And they said he stopped 4 or 5 times, and when he did, people are yelling at him to stop the show. And now, granted, I understand the man has lights in his eyes, right? Can't see very well. He, is listening to all these people at once yell at him something, but he he could have stopped it. He could have stopped it right then and there. He could have ordered them to cut the lights on, let the fucking medics get in and do their job. Also, though, the organizers are responsible, right? Because they also could have stopped it. A lot of these people could have stopped at any point in time. The fact that they were unprepared, it wasn't just the medical staff. It was people from the audience members were trying to help because they were so understaffed. They were unprepared for something like this to happen. You know, the exits. Somebody had mentioned the possibility that there could have been a mass shooting there and they would have been fucked is 100% accurate because there was only one entrance and exit to the whole fucking place, and that was through the big paper mache head.
That's something that I was wondering if was going to come out. Which, by the way, listener of the show, Krista, just texted me a Rolling Stone article about the same thing. having no idea that we were actually talking about this right now.
Wow,
That's how on
synchronicity.
brand this story is for us.
Yeah. Well, right. And it's a big thing, especially because, we're performer. I mean, to a degree, performers. I mean, Pat, you're more of a performer than I am, but
What are you talking about? You're the one. You have more eyes on you than me.
oh, well, thank you. But I've never played a show or anything like that. So anyway, but so it does hit close to home because you would hate to think that you are at any capacity, whatever it is that you're doing, if you have an audience, that your audience is going to fucking die to see you.
And yeah, it's honestly, well, first of all, in the age of COVID, that should weigh on every performer's mind when you try to get 50,000 people together in one fucking place
Absolutely.
anyway.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't think that's nothing that you ever take into. I mean,
Yeah.
I never had to worry about. I never had to worry about 50 fucking people being in a room at once. I mean, I think I would just shit my pants and be so happy everyone showed up. Literally everybody I knew came to the same show, on the same night. Yeah, I don't know. I'm more sympathetic towards him because I think that these guys have even though they slather their name all over it, they have a tendency to be more hands off. You know, like I said about the Fire Festival thing, man. That's why Ja Rule bounced, is because like he didn't fucking know what was going on. He was,
He's like, I'm
you know
just
what I
Ja
mean? He's Ja
Rule.
Rule. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. So I'm more inclined to blame the logistic people, and but then again, like how do you 50,000 people surging like that, like how do you prevent that from happening? Is it the way that you structure the audience? Do you have barriers so that individual sections don't get more uh don't get more congested than a couple, I don't know, 100 at once or something? But I will say this, I had a lot of friends that went to Lollapalooza this year, and as much shit as Lollapalooza got here in Chicago, they never saw numbers like that. So I think a part of that really was the fact that they had it was the right place, it was the right time. You're in Texas, where it's generally a lawless state, you know, um, where you had a crowd that could get that, people they're looking to blow off steam. They're at a concert. As far as they're concerned, the pandemic is over, and they just went fucking crazy. And I think this is something that we might see happen again. I really do. I think we really need to start thinking about as we kind of try to go back to normal. People are going to be coming out a little bit harder than they were before. You know what I mean? Because we all been cooped up for a good year or so. And now that
Yeah.
we're getting out, we're going to get a little buck. And unfortunately, I think that could be a component of this that no one expected as well. Is just that like the crowd reaction. Ultimately, it was the crowd that fucking surged.
Oh yeah.
It was them that did it, and maybe we could have structured things this way, or we could have had this on standby, whatever, whatever, whatever. It was the people that did it. It was the people that trampled all over each other and kept pushing forward. That didn't. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? It was the
Well,
people that lost their mind. You know what I mean?
right. Well, I mean, and people don't even but it is easy for someone to fall and for you to not even notice around you when you've got that many people.
Right, but so then it's the people in the back that are just mindlessly pushing forward that
Right.
weren't conscious enough to think about the people in the front. It was the people, it was the audience.
It's
This was
sad.
something. These people were killed. They killed by the audience. The audience killed the audience. It was fucking, immolation. It was they fucking set themselves on fire.
Yeah.
You put 50,000 people in a closed space and they fucking destroyed each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And you
won't.
could
Yeah.
blame the guy on stage, you could blame the fucking organizer, whatever, but ultimately it was the people too. And I don't know how you can police a group that big. You can't, you
Right.
know.
Well, and I mean that's why I won't I'm not a person that gets into the pit anymore. I used to be that person. And I'll tell you what the fuck happened and what changed me. It's not the fact that I'm 30. It's the fact that one time I fell and it scared the shit out of me. And I was very lucky. I had a crowd surfer that was coming towards me. And just as this surfer was coming towards me, the rest of everybody that was around me just left, and the dude fell right on top of me, and I fell down right underneath him. And I was very lucky. The people around me picked us up both up, and we were good to go. But it scared me because I had a friend who the year before that had gotten trampled at a show. She lived, she was okay, but I'd always heard about it, and I'd always heard that that's like the biggest risk. And if you fall down, you need to get up. You have to get right back up, because if you don't, they'll trample you. And so I don't do it anymore because of that. I'm scared of being trampled to death.
So
And
about three
no, go ahead.
about th- about 3 years ago, I went to a show, and it was Apocalypse Hoboken at the Chop House here in Chicago, and they were my favorite band in high school, and they kind of went on hiatus around 2003, and then played a couple reunion shows, right? And this was one of them, and it was me and my buddy. We got wasted. We got pretty drunk before we went, and we went there, and we're both big guys. We're both like 6'3", 6'4", right? So we push our way kind of up towards the front, like right before they start, and the band starts, and everything starts shifting, and the first thing that happens is I pop out of my shoes, and I'm like, God damn it!
Oh
And
god.
I go down to try to pick up my shoes, and someone bumps me from behind, and my glasses go flying.
Oh my god.
I was like,
Fucking
"Well, I'm
Velma.
barefoot and blind. Fuck it!" And I fucking threw my shoes, and I looked for them afterwards, and I found my shoes, never found my glasses. Uh, but unfortunately, like I'm blind without them, so I had to wander around blind all night, and then until I got back to my car, and thankfully, I kept an extra pair of glasses in my glove box, and was able to drive home, even though I shouldn't even been doing that. But like, yeah, I'm fucking 40, like, and I'm way too old for that. You know what I mean? We're like, what am I doing in a pit with no fucking shoes on, moshing and sweating, losing my glasses? You know what I mean? Like, I'm fucking 40 years old. I'm somebody's dad.
It's a hot mess.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah, I mean, I go to shows. I still like going to shows, and I like being kind of. I like hanging out, kind of on the sides and in the back. I like being in the crowd, but I don't like being in the crowd anymore. I'm just that's not for me. But it's
eh,
because I know that not a single fucking soul there around me has any responsibility for me at all. And
yeah,
I learned that when they all let this fucking man fall on top of my ass. I was like, oh shit, these people aren't.
yeah,
So, I had to learn it that way. I mean, I was okay. I did have a concussion. Someone kicked me in the head. That did happen, and I went to the hospital, had a concussion, but I got over it. That's probably why I'm fucked up now. So, and, and no, it's not. It was my childhood, but
no, you're a
you
little bit, you're a little TBI.
whatever.
You know, a little bit of TBI to you, I could tell.
What the fuck does that mean?
Traumatic brain injury.
Oh, it's like what's fucking TBI. Okay, well, yeah, a little bit, but so anyway, so it was horrific. Needless to say, this was very sad. I've spent way too much time watching the videos and things like that because I wanted to know. I'm an investigator, and when you guys come to me and you ask me to investigate things, I do. And so nothing is too crazy. I will entertain the idea that there was a mass satanic ritual that took place. But I'm here to tell you that as an investigator, that's not what happened. And, you need to just stop with that. You need to stop with that because this is very real to the family members, that are affected
Right.
by this. And, I know that you think that like it's the internet and they'll never see it. And you know what? Maybe they won't. But what if they do?
Oh my God. Yeah. If my kid died at that show, and then I had to read on the internet that people thought it was a satanic, he was the victim of a satanic fucking ritual, I'd be like, I'd lose my goddamn mind.
Right.
You
And,
know.
and Satanists don't work that way, you guys. That's not how Satanists work. So just, you need to quit with that as well and let Satanists be Satanists.
Yeah, the adrenochrome loses all its flavor if it's been trampled on by 49,999 other people. Just takes the fucking zaps the freshness right out of the
That's
adrenochrome.
just not how it works. But so that's not what happened. That didn't happen. Now, I mean, if something major were to come out and prove me wrong, okay, yeah, sure, I'd get that. But like, they're not gonna fucking do a satanic ritual right in front of your face. First of all, they're not stupid.
Well, I don't think it necessarily had to be satanic. I think that any type of blood sacrifice or whatever, I think satanic ritual is just what the reporters are throwing on it. I think if it was actually, I don't know. I'm not going to hypothesize any further for the reasons
Sure.
we already just discussed. But Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but anyway, I had to bring it up. Like I said, people brought it up to my attention. I don't normally talk about these types of things, but because of that, I had to talk about it. Like I said, I've been watching a lot of videos. I've been kind of in the know about what's been going on, and it's very depressing. Don't do that to yourself. I guess unless you're morbidly curious, but it does weigh on you when you do start, seeing the stuff and hearing it. It's very tragic, and what a terrible, terrible way to go. But of course, condolences to the family and the friends, and whomever's been affected by this, and the people that were there that now have. I mean, there's people that were there that saw this happen that now have to go on and live with that, and that's also awful. I mean, they're alive, but that's also a terrible thing to live with, and so that's there's that. But that was really all I had to talk about in the news this week. You want to talk about cutting open cows?
Sure.
So, Pat, you've been reading this. Okay, I'll start over. Hold on. No, we won't start there. We've been talking about cattle mutilation for a while now. It kind of keeps popping up on our radar, right? And so we keep teasing, like, "Hey,
Well,
we're
because they keep getting mutilated.
they keep keep fucking getting mutilated." I don't get
Right.
it. It's just like they're asking for it. They probably shouldn't be wearing what they're wearing.
I know, right?
Um,
That's why it's stripped from them.
so, but no, seriously. Yeah, so this cow mutilation thing, it's not really something you hear about anymore, except for maybe if you listen to on Wednesdays we talk weird because we talk about it. But I remember like back in the day, like this was a thing. Like one thing that comes to my mind when I think of cattle mutilations is South Park, because like that was kind of a whole storyline, and like these aliens and stuff. Like you think about the cattle, the aliens, whatever. um because like I said, I feel like people used to talk about this a lot more and nobody does anymore.
Well,
Go
well,
ahead.
that's the area where the kind of activity started was the Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona area. So it would make sense that South
Mhm.
Park, where those guys are from, Colorado, might spend it might work its way into the show. That's why they
Sure.
also they goof on Mormons a lot, is because there's a high Mormon
Yeah.
population over there.
Some Mormons over there. So that's a good point.
Regional
um
humor.
but but that's what I think of when I think of cattle mutilations, because that's like I said, it was topical for the time of being grown up. But Pat, you've been reading about this book about cattle mutilations.
Well, no, so the book isn't necessarily the book. I mentioned it a couple
What?
shows ago. But
Yeah, but
Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks: UFO Disinformation in the Age of Aquarius by Adam Go Rightly. The reason this book popped up on my radar is that the cover design is by Miguel Romero, who's a guy that I used to write with when I used to be associated with this other paranormal podcast called Grimerica, which it was based out of Canada, and I had a blog on their website for a couple years, and this was probably about 10 years ago, and I had it for about 2 years, and he was another contributor. Me and him, I don't write for the website anymore. Obviously, I'm associated with this podcast, and he's still on Twitter, and we're Twitter friends. And he's an artist, and he did the cover for this book, so he puts it up on Twitter. You know, the this book is out. I did the cover, blah blah blah, and I picked it up just because it looked like something I'd be interested in, and because he did the cover art. And wow, it's one of the best books. First of all, let me say this book has completely changed the way that I look at UFOlogy and a lot of the UFO stuff. Um, I cannot recommend it enough. I think that anyone who is a serious researcher, or if you're another podcaster that covers this kind of shit, you need to read this book, because this you're going to want to know what you're talking about, number one, and number two, it's gonna kind of reframe the context of which that you view a lot of these stories. And the basis of the book is right in the title. It's all about the UFO disinformation campaigns that the government launched probably in the past, bless you, 50 years or so, right? And it starts off talking about the cattle mutilations, right? And it goes on to talk about other things and different key figures in the UFO field. And if you've been if you're a Coast to Coast fan, if this is something that you've been following for a while, you'll recognize a lot of these names and a lot of the stories and anecdotes about them. And it's kind of interesting to another aspect of the book that's really interesting is to hear these kind of like personal anecdotes about these people that you just kind of know as Coast to Coast guests, or that you remember from sightings, or you remember from UFO hunters, right? And to hear about like what they're kind of like in their private lives and shit. I mean, they're all fucking weirdos. So, as far as the cattle mutilation stuff go, cattle mutilation started uh, back in the 60s. Okay, that's when the first cases were. And coincidentally enough, a lot of the early cases centered around the Dulce, New Mexico supposed underground base. And that's something that we've talked about a lot on the show too, right?
Something we've
Uh,
teased, yeah.
yeah. So, basically, I mean, I don't know. These cattle were being found mutilated. A local reporter by the name of Linda Moulton Howe came out and did a story about it for the local press. Ended up winning a Emmy award for it. Uh, it was kind of one of those breakthrough cases that got people talking about UFOs and extraterrestrials without, it was kind of this thing that the public could latch on to, right? It didn't talk about abductions. It didn't talk about creatures. It didn't talk about other planets, right? Here was physical evidence. We're finding these cattle. We're finding these cattle mutilated, okay? And it's very mysterious. And, there's kind of lights in the sky. There's all this, like, other phenomenon that kind of surrounds it. And, the police kind of think that it could be, you're hearing stories it could be UFOs. You're hearing stories it could be satanic cults, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Which is another thing that people love. Another thing that people love to just interject into random fucking
Into everything.
situations,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of was like the story that, like, it's the phenomenon started in the '60s, but started to gain traction in the '70s and early '80s, and became kind of as people wanted to hear these stories, so the press wanted to report on them every time they happened, and they wanted to kind of throw in their own conjecture of what it could be, even though obviously no one had really proof that what it was. And it just kind of spread like wildfire. And what the book talks about, and what is kind of true, is that what the cat what I think the mutilations are, and it's a theory proposed by the book, and I tend to agree with it, is that when this whole thing started, there was in that same area something known as Project Gas Buggy. And Project Gas Buggy was a project that was carried out by the United States Atomic Energy Commission. And what they were trying to do was find non combative uses for nuclear weapons, right? And basically, what Project Gas Buggy was, and it was in Dulce, New Mexico, the fucking right in their backyard, right in the same area where these cattle were found mutilated a couple years later. Um, it was basically a precursor to fracking, where they would blow up these nuclear bombs underground as a way to potentially release natural gas and resources and stuff. They tried this, and it wasn't that successful, and it was kind of dangerous, and they didn't really like it. Well, flash forward about a decade later, and there's some concern that those tests were starting to have a negative effect on the environment. So what they decided to do is take samples from some of the cattle, and instead of just going into these ranchers' land before this stuff enters the food supply, because remember, these cattle are being used for fucking beef, right? So they start taking samples, and what they're really looking for is blood samples and lymph node samples, because if there's cancerous materials in the environment, you're going to see it in the cattle's lymph nodes. But to try to if you go in there and you just take what you need from the cattle, it's kind of gonna leave a really clear map of what you're doing and why do you need this stuff, right? So to throw people off the trail, they also harvested the sexual organs or took the eyeball or whatever fucking weird shit they're gonna do, right? And that was pretty much it. And I guess one of the early mutilation sites they found where they found the cattle, they also found radar chaff, which is something that you would like a terrestrial aircraft would use, like a helicopter or something, to cloak whatever was operating in the area, right? So you have aircraft, you have low flying craft coming in, and you don't want it to be picked up by the civilian air traffic control towers, right? You would use radar chaff to kind of mask it. So now that's not something a UFO would use, right?
Right.
That's not something that something coming in from another fucking star system would use. That's a very, it's a urban or like a, it's a military grade uh piece of equipment. And that was found in around these areas. So it makes sense that it would be humans that would do it. Or you know what I mean? Trying to cover their asses. So this gets covered in the press and it starts to gain traction. A lot of people are very interested in it. At first, the government's glad because their cover story is working, right? But then it starts to balloon and get more and more attention, and now they're worried, like, oh shit, if people really start digging into this, they're gonna realize this fucking bullshit, right? So HBO wanted to do like a full length feature documentary on this, and they contacted Linda Moulton Howe, who is the reporter from I don't know exactly where she's from, but anyone that's listening to Coast would recognize her name because she does tons of stuff with them. Um, but they contact her to come in and work with HBO because she had produced a documentary, Strange Harvest, which was all about the cattle stuff, and that's what she won the Emmy for. It was like a news package thing, right? So HBO contacts her, says, we want to take your thing that you did for the local news and we want to do a giant feature-length documentary for it. And she's like, 100% I'm in, right? Then the Air Force contacts her and they say to her, we're from the government. We've seen your research. We want to talk to you about, we want to share some information with you. And she says, okay. So she sits down and they show her some files and they say, okay, you can look at these, but you can't take pictures and you can't take them with you, but when you're in this room you can look at them. And it's all about underground bases in New Mexico. It's all about aliens that had landed and were using the cows to try to, like, they were harvesting the atoms from the blood or something, and all about genetic research that the aliens are doing in a biological exchange program and all this stuff, right, that you've all heard before. It's all bullshit, right? They give her all this information and they say to her, we just want you to know what we have. You got to verify this on your own, which of course she can't fucking do.
Right.
And don't go to and just and we're going to try to get you we're going to try to get these files to you for your HBO documentary. So she goes back to HBO and she tells them this fantastic story about how the government came to her, provided her with all of this information, and she's just and she needs, like, she's going to have it for them in a couple months, and they can use it in their documentary. And HBO is like, get the fuck out of here! Oh my god, this is going to change fucking the world. So she starts working on it and she starts putting stuff together. And the government checks in a couple months later. Whoever talked to her comes back, talk to her again, and says, we're still working, and here's some more stuff, right? And they feed her even more information, all bullshit. And then she goes back to HBO, and at this point, HBO is like, all right, are we ever going to see any of this, right? Because she's starting to lose a little credibility. Like, she did this news program, which was very not really woo-wooey. It was very kind of journalist, it was all about journalistic integrity, and it was above the board and didn't propose anything that it couldn't prove and stuck to the facts and was very based in reality. And now she's coming in and she's making all these crazy claims about, like, people being abducted and biological exchanges and vats underneath New Mexico where embryos are being grown in rapid, all this shit. And this whole thing goes back and forth between her and the Air Force and HBO for about a year until HBO finally says, you know what, you haven't brought us anything. We're just going to cancel the documentary. And she never hears from the Air Force again. And the whole thing was them stringing her along to get to tank this fucking documentary that HBO was going to do.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
that's what disinformation is that you tell people bullshit to ruin their credibility. And like I could go on about like, and I'm not trying to hijack the show and turn into a fucking 45-minute commercial about this book, but like this is something that's happened throughout history where you have people that stumble upon something that's going on, something that's secretive, not necessarily with extraterrestrial origin or occult connections or anything like that, right? But they stumble across something and the government needs to cover it up. So what they do is they fucking feed the person some UFO bullshit to flip the script on them, discredit them, make them seem like a lunatic, and then whatever it is they were trying to distract you from can quietly be moved away and they can move on to the next thing. So that's what my take on cattle mutilations. It's, at least in the instances outlined in this book, it was just simply them trying to do environmental research on them fucking up by seeing what happens when you blow up a nuke underground. You know what I mean? And they were just trying to cover their tracks, and they came up with some fucking alien shit. You know?
Okay. But then how, I mean, that's far from, Oregon. Oregon is a very big hot spot for cattle mutilation. So I mean, why, and not just that, other places in the world. I mean, how do we explain that, how it's happening in other places of the world as well? Um Outside of the US. I mean, what is it? Either Brazil, I think it's Brazil, maybe it's Argentina. They are really, they have a lot of I think they have the most cattle mutilations in the world. Doesn't even happen in the US. So why would it happen outside of the country if it were just the government, you know what I mean, doing this for experimental purposes? Which makes sense. I mean, it does make sense. Is it possible that we kind of have a mix of everything going on? Because let's look at it from, let's say the most popular theory that people have out there, which is aliens. It's aliens, they're coming in because they're cutting things out of these animals with, precision, and they're draining them of all their blood, and it doesn't really make much sense. Why would they do that anyway?
Right.
I mean, what would be the point? We've kind of talked about that before. Like, why would they go after animals? Why not just like dissect humans? They're not going to go to prison. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to arrest them. They're not going to get in trouble for it. Which I guess people do go, missing for out of nowhere for no reason, or end up dead for no reason or whatever.
Right, they do. Yeah.
But why would they make it so obvious and pick out cattle? Pat, you've mentioned how cattle, that's big money. And it is. Actually, I've actually been looking into livestock, not because I'm going to buy any right now, but I might one day. But I've been looking into it, and they're expensive. You can't just go buy a cow. Like, it's not that simple. Like, you can't just go buy an alpaca. You know what I mean? Like, these things are, because when we talk about cattle, we're not just talking about cow. This happens across the board with multiple different animals, livestock, and but it's pricey to buy livestock because they make money. They continue to make money. Something like an alpaca continues to make money, so they're extremely pricey because they people want them for the fur. So over the course of its life, it'll dish out so much fur or whatever. A dairy cow's more expensive than a steer, and because it's a one and done deal, whereas a dairy cow you continue to get milk out of. Anyway, that's not the point. So, but why would they do it somewhere so obvious, like a farm, as opposed to just picking up random wildlife? Or maybe they do pick up random wildlife and we just don't notice. I mean, is that possible? But what would be the motive there? I mean, I don't know. Personally, I can't think of anything in particular except maybe that they're interested in how we harvest food. And that would be why they study these things, and they take parts of them and things like that, because they are curious to see what our food contains, and that kind of stuff. Because nobody really cares if they're taking crops, which I mean, technically, when they're making crop circles, who knows if they're taking some of it or not, if crop circles are a thing, which we haven't even really talked about. So, I mean, why? Just why? It doesn't make whole lot of sense.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you can really narrow it down to either ETs or the government, right? Like I know it seems like almost too big of a phenomenon to try to come to a conclusion about, but I mean, I think we can all agree it's not Satanists. It's not some kind of a cult group.
It's not
If the,
Satanist. A lot of people do think that they're cryptids as well, like chupacabra. I mean, that's they get their name goat sucker because if they are, they're very well known for cattle mutilation. So some cryptids, but then there's question of whether or not the chupacabra, as you guys know, if you follow on social media, whether or not it's an alien, um, because that's a possibility. So I mean, but I agree. I think satanic cults and chupacabra are probably the least likely and the least well accepted. I would say that the aliens and the government conspiracies are probably the most wildly accepted because it's
right,
happening regardless. I mean, this is happening and it's weird and it's not so easily explained away. I mean, they tell you the explanation for it is just decomp. It's just different stage of decomposition that we aren't catching, but I just don't necessarily agree with that.
yeah, I think that there's, definitely I don't think you're going to come up with one explanation that covers every single case, right? I think I think if you there's UFO, there's there's government, and then there's, active nature, like misidentified active nature, right? Like, and I think there's probably some cases that might have, quote unquote cattle mutilation cases that could have been created by domestic uh, predators.
Sure.
You know what I mean? In fact, as far as the government is concerned, the FBI launched an investigation about them in the let's see, when was it? I think it was like the
They
2000s.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, and they came up with the ruling that they were all caused by hold on, where is it? Between well, there's thousands of cases, but they said they were all on January 15th. The bureau closed the investigation, putting out the statement saying that none of the reported cases has involved what appears to be mutilations by anything other than common predators. So I don't believe that for a second, but I think that that could apply to some of them possibly, and that'll reduce that number. And when you talk about these outlier cases where we're like, oh, well, a case just happened in Sweden, or a case just happened over here, a case just happened over there. All right, well, let's say, a certain percentage of those are just misidentified acts of nature, right? And that's going to draw that down a little bit. And maybe it's not necessarily just our government, maybe this is something that other agencies are doing as well, or an agency that acts globally. you know um as far as it being extraterrestrial, I think that I don't know, I'm something I got to admit, something with this latest round of like UAP disclosure stuff, something's just not sitting right with me about the UFO field as we knew it in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early aughts, right? It just felt like it was changing. It felt like, it was being morphed into something else. And the cattle mutilations, having a terrestrial explanation for them, just I don't know, it seems to make sense. It sounds right to me, you know, because it doesn't what, what why, like you said, like, why would they come here? Why would you travel across dimensions to come here and then fuck with a couple cows?
Yeah, I mean, I agree
It
with
doesn't
that
make any sense.
aspect of it, you
Why
know.
would you come here to do anything? Why would you come here to build a base in the middle of a fucking hill?
Mhm.
Unless the government wants to build a base in the hill and they don't want people poking around, so they want to scare you, so they tell you there's aliens in there. You know what I
True.
mean?
True. That's true.
There was one story in here about a guy who was a UFOologist, and he was into the cattle mutilation thing, and he lived in Arizona, and he was looking for UFOs at night, and he was taking a lot of photographs of um, craft leaving and landing uh, one of the Kirkland Air Force Base, right? And the NSA realized that this guy's spending a lot of time photographing one of their military installations, right? So they, just as a precaution, they put a couple agents in an empty apartment like across the street from him, right? So these guys are keeping an eye on him just because they're like, this guy's taking a lot of pictures and he's driving off at night and he's doing these, like, he's taking his friends with him and they're doing these UFO stakeout things and they're taking pictures of things landing and taking off and shit. And he realizes that he doesn't know what they're doing, but if he does this thing with his camera at a certain shutter speed using a certain night vision thing, he's able to capture what he thinks are invisible UFOs like circling the base and shit. And what it really is this next level communications like laser device thing that they're testing, right? So the NSA finds out that this guy is intercepting their fucking signals and shit, right? He doesn't understand what they're doing and like what they're saying, but he's got this thing set up at his house where now he's trying to monitor the base and trying to like listen in on stuff, and he's hearing a part of it. So to fuck with them, they start broadcasting shit into his apartment from across the street, and they start feeding him a bunch of fucking UFO nonsense. And this guy starts like transcribing all this shit and sending these tapes to anyone that'll listen to him. People come over and they look at what he's got and they can't explain it, right? Then the fucking NSA guys really want to fuck with him. I should have been in the CIA, I swear to God. If I could have done my life over again, I would have been a spy. Because some of this shit is so fucking funny. They send this guy a computer, and it's like, and with this cryptic note saying like, we're very impressed with the advancement that you made with using terrestrial technology, and like, please use this computer if you want to communicate with us. So like, he fucking sets this computer up, and he types in a question, and then a couple minutes later it'll respond to him, and it's the guys across the street fucking with him, right? And sometimes he'll type in a question and the guys won't be there, and it'll take them 2-3 days to get a response because they got to come back to their post and they go, oh shit, you fucking asked us something, and they're just like instant messaging each other. They're catfishing them basically. It's probably one of the first instances of catfishing, and it's these two agents across the street just fucking with this guy, and and the shit that they tell him is it's like all stuff that's like considered the fucking cornerstone of like modern ufology. And it was just these guys across the street screwing with this guy because they wanted to distract him for the fact that he actually did figure out a way to photograph and intercept some of this laser shit that they were shooting out of the base. You know what I mean? And it's like, I was just reading, like I said, I read this book and I was just like, it was like blowing my fucking mind. Now, maybe the book is disinformation, right?
It could, yeah.
That's the problem, is that when you start going down that well, you realize that everything could just be something to fuck with, to make you disbelieve the other thing. You know what I mean? They flood the market with so many stories that you have no idea who to believe.
Well, right, and I mean that's another thing. Anybody can write a book, right? And so I mean, and
Sure.
they can literally say anything. We've talked about that. We talked about that with the Satanic Panic. We talked about that that one book. What is it? Michelle Remembers or whatever the fuck it was called, and it was all bullshit. You know what I mean? Anybody can write a book and put things in. That could be disinformation. I think you're right. Definitely read multiple sources about these subjects. Don't never just bury your flag on one hill and call it a day. In
Right.
this world, which is as we've proven people are capable of doing, taking in different ideas and whatnot. But dig further, dig further and ask questions and, get those questions answered. I mean, like I said, what do I think that the government would do something like that? Fucking absolutely, I do. But do I think that it accounts for every single case of cattle mutilation? Absolutely not. I don't, because it doesn't make sense for other parts of the world. But you're right; it's a good point. Other governments could be doing this. But I think that like if it were the government all the time, like the recent cases, the stuff that we've been covering on the show, whenever it pops up and I'd bring it up, I try to follow through with those cases because they always go under investigation. I mean, like again, back to the whole catalyst money. It is, and this is taken very seriously. And they have whole teams of people that investigate this. They do autopsies, or I guess not autopsies, but what are the necropsies on the animals? And the people that examine these animals say that there is no earthly way that this is possible and makes any sense whatsoever. Like, why would they say that? Why would they tarnish their credibility? And if it was the government, why wouldn't the government come around and be like, well, you guys can't say that to people publicly? You know what I mean? Like, you would think that they would have a way, or I guess maybe they would want them to say that to people so that it throws you off track because you think it's aliens and not the
Right.
government. So, I mean, it is a weird thing. I mean, either way, I think that we both agree. I'm not saying that it's aliens. I don't know. I think it's odd.
Well, that's the point kind of this book and just in general is just that has the government really done a good job? So if all this alien stuff is real, like they've done like the world's worst fucking job keeping it a secret.
Well, because I don't think, personally, I think that that is because they don't know as much as we give them credit as a collective of knowing. They don't know shit. And that's what I
Yeah,
think.
I think that's a possibility too, and
I
that
think they
that could
probably
be
know a little bit more than we do, but not nearly as much as people like to think they know.
right because I mean, no, I don't. The UFO thing is real, but I think as I've said multiple times on this show, a lot of the craft could be experimental craft,
Sure could be.
right? And it's better for us to just try to act like we don't know what they are and keep our mouths shut than admit like, oh, that's an experimental craft or something like that. And now with this UAP thing and this like the disclosure that we're supposedly inching towards, you know, it's just being handled in such a weird way. You got to kind of look at like what the con is here. Like, why are you now coming forward with this? Like, what's the other shoe that's going to drop here? Is it that you're gonna try to get us all hyped up to go to war with China or like another country? Is it that you're gonna say that aliens exist but we don't know anything about them? Or is there someone else going to pop up and say, yes, we've been in communication with them, this is all under control? Would we rather float a bullshit story about the aliens meeting with Eisenhower and coming up with some kind of treaty just so that our adversaries think that like we have
An
some
alien
kind of a
treaty?
yeah, and they don't, but we really don't, and we're like, well, I really want everyone to think we do because they might. And that's what all it is. It's just fucking bullshit, and like none of it's and the reality of the situation is that like we have no idea what's happening. We have no control over any of this. You know, the reason that we go after civilians and steal their cameras when they take pictures of this shit is because we want pictures that they have because we need all the pictures we can get because we're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And I
I
think
mean,
I think personally, just in all my research and everything that I've looked into, I think that that's most likely the case, and that's what's happening. I mean, I would like to entertain the idea that this is just kind of experimental craft and it's man made, except I know the science, and I know that the science says that it's still not possible. And even though I know what other people say, well, they wouldn't tell us what's possible and what's not. That's not true. In scientific community, you're free to have your own private labs, and it's much different. The government doesn't own science, right? And so they don't have a market on that. Now, could they have their own team of scientists developing other stuff? Sure, of course they could. And do they have endless money to do it? Sure, of course they do. But the science that we're seeing and these crafts that we're seeing goes way, way, way beyond that. And so I think that we don't know shit. And I think that we do probably have men in black. And I think that they do probably visit because they want to know what we know without telling us that they don't know what we know. And they want to act like they know so that they're intimidating so that we talk to them and we give them information. I think that, like I said, I think they know a little bit more than we do, but not much.
Well, no, I agree with you, and I think that's how this kind of ties into the cattle mutilations. Is that once you admit that they're trying to control the narrative by creating one of their own, because the actual narrative is we don't
Yeah.
know what the fuck is happening, so they create this story that's going to be the fucking story, then they're going to try to fold as many things as possible into that story.
Oh, sure.
And the cattle mutilation thing for them to like kind of sideways attribute that to the UFO is just another way of them controlling the narrative and taking attention away from what they're doing. Like we are doing this, but we don't want eyes on it, so let's just add it in the UFO mythos, because like we keep saying, it really doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It
It
doesn't
doesn't
really
make
fit
sense.
the mythology.
Right.
So let's at least entertain the idea that that's because it was sloppy storytelling, and that if this was the Star Wars franchise and the Marvel franchise, it would be cleared up, it would be retconned in the reboot. You know what I mean? Like, which is what they're fucking doing right now with this UAP shit. They are rebooting the mythos. Okay, and I honestly believe that's what's fucking happening, and I think that like this cattle mutilation shit, they're bringing it back because they're trying to figure out what the fuck to do to it, because like I said, man, the abductions, the mutilations, they don't make a lot of sense with this new direction, with the stuff that's being released from the government about the UAP disclosure.
Sure.
And I think if they're if it doesn't fit and it doesn't make sense, then it just is bullshit. And there you go.
What if the government, now here's this for a second. Here's my hot take. What if the government noticed that cattle mutilations were happening and they were unexplained and they were like, that's weird. But you know what? We could probably get in on some of this. And then that's when they started mutilating cattle for whatever. And they're just like, we could just blame it on those guys because they were already fucking doing it. So
No, I honestly I believe the what is it, the Project Gas Buggy theory, which is that they were experimenting with early fracking, and it kind of went one of the nuclear detonations went sideways. They released a bunch of poisonous gas in the atmosphere. They wanted to see how it was affecting the environment, and they did this, and they just kind of they made up some spooky stories, and people kind of bought it and went with it. And then moving forward, maybe there's copycats, maybe there's predators that get folded in, they get folded into this. Once you get that snowball going, it just kind of keeps rolling downhill.
sure.
Maybe they're still doing it. Maybe they, who know? You know what? What did you just say? Like the latest hotspot is fucking Portland. Yeah, because they're probably this is me just unsubstantiated fucking spouting off insanity. Maybe it's because they're chemtrailing the shit out of that place right now because of all the fucking social unrest that's going on there, and they're cutting the cattle up to figure out how bad they're fucking with the water. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
Oregon's been a leader in cattle mutilation forever since it's been happening. Oregon's been like the one of like the number one spot in the U.S. that cattle mutilations have been happening, and that has been the newest string of cattle mutilations is there. But it could be. I mean, it could be because I don't know. I don't believe in chemtrails as a thing, but that's just me. But
oh, I do, dude. I have pictures of that shit. I 100% believe in that.
I mean, I've seen it, but I don't think it's anything that I don't think it's anything nefarious. I mean, as weird as it sounds, I don't think it's anything nefarious. But that's maybe a topic for another day. But that's been going on for a while. So I mean, why is it going on now? I mean, what would be happening now? That I mean, like you said, it could be tied to something like that or some type of experiment in the area.
People went crazy in Portland, and then they start their own fucking city or something. Like they had a demilitarized zone, and someone took over it, and then they.
And
I don't
that's
know.
in the city though. That's not in the farm fucking country land. Like,
But if you're spraying shit in the air to try to pacify a whole entire town, and then you want to see how much of it's leaked into the environment. Like, all right, let's pop down there and cut up a fucking couple of cows
well,
and
yeah,
see
but
what.
this has been going on for years and years and years and years. Like, this isn't a new thing. This has been going on, and so I mean, obviously they something would have to be cleared in Oregon. I mean, they just decided that that's their one of their testing sites. I don't know, but like I said, Oregon's been a leader in cattle mutilations forever, which was why I'm surprised. Like, so you talk about the book and you talk about, kind of that weird Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico kind of area, which makes sense because you have, you've got two major bases right in that area, but all the same shit was going on in Oregon at the same time on a bigger scale. So where does that fit into the picture? I mean, just either way, period. None of the explanations that are given for cattle mutilation makes any sense. None of it
Mm-hmm.
really fits. And so what if we're just wrong about all the shit? It's just something that we haven't even fucking thought of. It's ghosts. It's obviously just ghosts, guys. It's just ghosts that get hungry and they eat the eyeballs out of cows. I don't know. I don't know. But that is what makes it weird. But why do you think that people don't talk about it anymore like they used to? Is it just me? Am I the only one that remembered that cattle mutilation was like a thing? Or I mean, was that something, Pat, that was relevant in your, 100 years ago or
Yeah,
whenever
way
you were a
back in the day.
kid?
Fuck you. Uh,
No,
get your mediocre titties
frack
out of
you
here.
is the me and my titties.
Mediocre titties.
Me and my mediocre titties.
Statistically average bust. Um, no, I don't know. I think it's just kind of, here's the thing about the public. We get tired of beating our heads against the wall.
That's true.
And if you're not going to give us a solution, we're not going to give a shit about the question anymore. And, they're kind of tantalizing us with a solution with all this UAP disclosure. But realistically, you're probably not going to get one, you know. But I don't feel like they can give us an answer to the cattle mutilation thing, because the answer is, yeah, we were fucking with the environment. We wanted to see how bad it was, or we made we we accidentally released some shit into the environment. We were just seeing how if it got into your water or not, and that's why everyone. Stop myself before I say that, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's the reason it's kind of been there's been a lack of interest is because we're not getting anywhere with it.
Okay.
We're
I
not
don't
getting
think so.
anywhere with it,
People just got bored.
But think about it. I mean, there's no the thing about the cattle mutilations is that, like, to get even a halfway answer is to open up a hornet's nest. You know what I mean? Even if we could narrow it down between the government extraterrestrials, that in and of itself is fucking huge. Forget about cause. If we, the reason for them doing it, if we just knew who was doing it, not even the why or how, boom. Like, huge fucking game changer, right? So, like, you can't even answer part of that question.
Right.
And so that's why I don't think we're going to get answers to it.
Okay.
I mean, because that's why I think it's got to be some shit they're doing for some reason. They're testing something in the environment.
Okay. Well, that's Dr. X's hot take on cattle mutilation.
I brought that name back at the right episode, didn't I?
Yep.
Fucking perfect timing.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't know about this one. It's not one that I've spent personally a lot of time with. Just because it's not that it's not relevant. I mean, I guess there you go. I'm bored with it. It's boring. It's a brick wall. I feel like there's really nowhere else to go. There's no new evidence aside from the fact that we know that it's still happening to this day.
Right.
And so, therefore it just doesn't really, I can spend my time doing other things, and that's, not that it's not interesting, of course. When I was a young weirdo, I, had my time, reading about cattle mutilation, but, now as an adult, like I said, it's just not one that I focus on too much. But as the stories do develop, we do like to deliver them to you as much as they come out. We will continue to do that. But maybe now with a couple of these theories in our back pocket, we can kind of pick apart the stories coming forward to see if there's anything that aligns with any of the theories. And I think that would be kind of cool. So,
yeah, I would say the next time one of these stories pops up in your news feed, look at the area, look at what's going on around there, and just see if there's anything else in the area that could correlate, or if you could connect the dots.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and so, well, like I said, I mean, we'll probably explore those a little more in depth as they come along, going forward. I think that would be cool. But if they happen some more, we'll let you guys know when they do. But what do you guys think about cattle mutilation? Do you think that it's what do you think? You think it's the government? Do you think it's the aliens? Do you think it's the chupacabra? Maybe it's your satanic cult. Maybe you're in a satanic cult and you want to talk to us about your cult and how you guys mutilate cattle. You can do that by calling us at 773-59-WEIRD. So there's that. But I don't have anything else to add. Do you have anything else to add?
I think we should mutilate a cow on the way to CryptoCon.
Okay. I can't do that. Okay.
I think we
We'll
should
see.
go out that Friday night and fuck up a cow.
And go fuck up a cow. Just
Yeah.
prove that we can, or
Oh, I don't know. Probably not. That's probably a bad idea. Never mind.
that's terrible. That's a terrible idea. Cows are beautiful creatures. Well, on that note, guys, now
You're
there's gonna be a
just
fucking cattle mutilation, and the
you're just
government's gonna pit it on us in
you're just
Kentucky.
jealous their teats. No, you know what? I will say this. If I said anything here that happens to be right, don't silence me. Offer me a job. I will sell out. I will come work for you guys. I would love to work for like a propaganda generating think tank where I could just sit in the room with like four other nerds and we could sit there and eat fucking Fritos and shit, drink Mountain Dew, and come up with all of this shit for you guys to do. Give me a
Okay.
fucking job, man. You
Pat
know,
is looking for a job. I mean, Dr. X. Dr. X is looking for a job. And
you could feed whatever bullshit stories you want through this podcast. Like when we do our
no.
we'll sell you that news thing when she goes to me. Hey Pat, do you have any news this week? I will spout out whatever fucking bullshit you want me to say. If you want me to get up here and say that the
Okay.
Russians are bad and that and whatever, I'll do it. I'll do it.
You can
I'll
do
fu-
you can do that. I'll I'll
I
I'll I'll be the voice of reason, but I'm not gonna kill your dream. I'll let
dude,
you.
I'll get you fucking new brakes with that CIA money.
No, new brakes. I need new boobs. No, I mean, you can do that. Like I said, you're free to do that, but I can't. I'm honest. I'm the honest one. I will not sell out. But if you want to give Pat a job, please.
Yes. I missed my calling in life. This book is making me realize I missed my calling in life.
I support you. But anyway, okay, that's all. I don't think I got anything else to add. Um, we'll see you guys back here. We got one more Wednesday before CryptidCon. I don't know what it's going to be about, so we'll see. But we'll see you guys next Wednesday.